Welcome back to Kevin Toll Reads. I hope you're doing well. I am here with a long-awaited video. I did my top books in May of 2024 after being on BookTube for a while. I've now been on BookTube for over a year, so I'm eager to get back to this. In the last 10 months since I posted that video, which I'll put a link up here, you can go check it out, but a lot has changed. I've read different genres, I've delved into different authors, and so a lot's changed. As in the previous ranking, I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it this time as well. These aren't my all-time top-rated books, but these are the books that I feel like are my favorites. The books that really speak of what I'm about, and so I was eager to do this to compare and contrast as an individual, and also share with you how tastes have changed. I think this definitely is something that I would continue to do every 10 to 12 months and see how things change as I continue to branch out to different authors and different genres. And so with that being said, a couple things. When I went back to look at my previous video from May of 2024, I noticed a couple things. One, I had an honorable mention section, which I will continue to do so. I have 3 honorable mentions, I believe, in the last video. I'll have 3 this time. And I didn't have 10 books. I called it my top 10, but I actually had 11 books. And I don't think anyone caught that. I didn't scroll all the way down through the comments, but I don't think anyone caught that I had 11 books on the list instead of 10. And so, with keeping with, consistency, I am once again doing 3 honorable mentions and 11 books. So it's not really a top 10 list, it's just my top list. And so I thought that was just kind of funny, and I wanted to share that with you, and for consistency's sake, keep it kind of like that way. So yes, with that being said, let's jump right into this. I'm going to share what was and what is, and see if any of those are the same and what has changed. And I think these are always interesting to do. So let's dive right in. So last time I had on the honorable mention section, Changes by Jim Butcher from the Dresden Files, one of my favorite Dresden File books. That is staying, as I hold my hand up here, that is staying on this list as an honorable mention. Dresden Files is definitely one of my favorite series. Changes is one of the great entries in the Dresden Files. There's a lot that happens. I just, a lot of people talk about, I tried that, I couldn't get past the first book, or I couldn't get past the first couple books. And if you stick with this, the payoffs are so good. Just trust me. And so, next honorable mention, and this one has changed, but my other honorable mention was Die Trying, book number 2 in the Jack Reacher series. Huge fan of Jack Reacher, but this year the honorable mention goes to Robert Crais, Hostage, a thriller. Die Trying is a great book, but Hostage is such a flippin' good read. I mean, it's such fun. There's just so much to offer here. I love both of these books, but yeah, Hostage by a little bit. And last year, I had The Fool's Run by John Sandford, one of the kid novels, in my honorable mentions. This year, in a big change, High Lonesome by Louis L'Amour. One of the big changes in this past year was delving into Westerns, specifically Louis L'Amour, along with a few others that I've read. Yeah, these little books pack a punch, and this one is just one of those books that I really enjoyed. I flew through, and it just sticks with me. That kind of stand they take up on High Lonesome, it stuck with me, especially some of the Easter eggs at the end. And oh man, it's a really good book, really, really good book. And so that takes us into the top 11 here. And so I'm going to get situated, and we're going to come back and roll through the first half of that list. And so again, we are at the Pinnacle top 11 list. I don't have these ranked in any particular order. These are just my favorite 11 books. And so last year, Good Omens was on the list. Does it stay? Well, no. I have Ed McBain, not Cop Hater, which I'm holding in front of me. My mom has Killer's Wedge, which was the book that I really, really enjoyed in the 87th Precinct. This is now one of my favorite top books, and Ed McBain is such a fantastic writer. The next book I had on my list from last year was the Paper Menagerie short story collection by Ken Liu. Really good. Ken Liu is a fantastic writer. I just finished the Dandelion Dynasty, his epic fantasy series, and I have to say I'm still kind of processing it a little bit, but I think his short stories are better. But I do have a book that replaces this on the list, and it is In the Heart of the Sea by Nathaniel Philbrick, The Tragedy of the Welsh of Essex. I read this with Josh, already overbooked. Yes, gasp, a nonfiction book on my list. I feel like I've really grown. And so, yeah, In the Heart of the Sea. Last year, and to no surprise, I had this great, fantastic book, an entry in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, Wizarding Glass. One of my favorite books by King and my favorite Dark Tower book on my list. This one was a hard one, because am I going to supplant this? This has to be on my list, right? Well, no, it's not, because Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire replaced it. Yes, I know, sacrilege. You have to keep in mind that the books that were on the list and even though they might get kicked off the list, are still fantastic books. But yeah, Harry Potter, why did I wait so long to get into that? Holy cow. And so last year, I had The Last Argument from Kings. It is the third book in the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie on my list. Will it get supplanted? And the answer is no, it won't. This is an epic book. Out of the two trilogies and the standalone books, probably arguably my favorite book from Abercrombie. I just think it has everything. It is the pinnacle book that accumulates the whole trilogy for you. So you have storylines and character arcs that either come to fruition or don't. And it's just really a lot of good fun. Such an epic book. Grimdark fantasy. He is so good at writing that. Last year, I had this short story collection from Stephen King. Yes, another King book that was on my list last year. Night Shift, his original collection, one of my favorites. Will it get supplanted? No, it won't, because Night Shift is still on my list. There's so many good stories in here. The Mangler, Critters Incorporated, Jerusalem's Lot. There's just so many in here that go on and on. They're so good. You can pick up any of these, and they go from good to great to just phenomenal. Definitely some of King's better writing. It's just really, really good. A really good collection. And then last, but certainly not least, we have Kane and Abel, which was on my list from last year. Will it get supplanted? Yes, it will, by Lonesome Dove. Another Western on my top list for this year. Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. I buddy read this with Trav at Trav's Bookshelf, Rowdy at Rowdy Player One, and Scott at some other character during January and February. We really enjoyed the heck out of this book. My favorite Western to this date. I do have some other kind of iconic Westerns to get into as well, but Lonesome Dove is phenomenal. It is worth the hype. It's not a perfect book in my opinion, but it is up there. There's a lot to offer here in a very big book, and the story and characters are great. So now I'm going to get set up for the rest of this list. And so we are down to the last 5 on my list of 11 of my top books. And last year I had this book, Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett, the first book in, well, there is now a prequel book, but it was originally the first book in the kind of the Kingsbridge Chronicles. And so will it be supplanted this year? And the answer is no, it won't. This is still one of my favorite historical fiction books. I definitely want to get into the second book in the series. I'm just trying to get through some other buddy reads, but I would like to get into that. If I don't get into it in the later half of this year, I probably will make it a priority for 2026. But I really love Ken Follett's writing. The next book I have on my list, and it's not a surprise to everyone. Last year I had Jurassic Park on my list by Michael Crichton. It's a sentimental pick. It's one of the books that always seems to find its way on this list. So you're probably not surprised to know that, yeah, it's getting supplanted. I am putting Catcher on the Rye on this list. I have to thank Pat at Book Chat with Pat for this, because she's the one that, did a books that she taught, and it was one of those, and it kind of was like, hey, I need to reread Catcher in the Rye. And so I read it last year, did a really good review, kind of paying her homage to her book review and the books that she taught. And so I really enjoy rereading this. It is such a good book. There's so many different themes and meanings, and kind of in between the, read between the lines in this story. It's a great book, and it is on my top list. Last year I had Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, another kind of thriller, sci-fi thriller that was on this list. Yeah, it's getting supplanted by The Hour of the Dragon by Robert E. Howard, which I read with the gentleman from the EEBS, the Elusive Exclusive Book Society. We read it as part of our kind of get-together for that live stream, and man, it was my first full-length Conan story, and man, was it good. I enjoyed it a lot. It stuck with me. Definitely that live stream has helped kind of cement some things with me as well, but I continue to read through Howard and the Tales of Conan, and I really, really enjoy it. So yeah, this is now on my list. Last year I had Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary, one of my favorite books, probably my favorite audible narrated books, period. And so, yeah, this was a tall one to knock off this list, but it did. Going with Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, my first Brandon Sanderson read. I was pleasantly surprised. This is an entry point for some people in their minds, but a lot of people also that are very Brandon Sanderson fans, they feel like this is one of his weaker entries, this is one of his earlier books. I was enamored by this book. I thought the story, the premise, and some of the characters I was just in all of it, and it was such a good story. It definitely stuck with me, and it's now on my top list. And last, but certainly not least, I had, a third Stephen King book on my list last year. I had Duma, one of my favorite novels by King. Will it get supplanted? And the answer is yes, because we had my second 5-star read in the last 12 months, and that was The Black Echo by Michael Conley. You guys were asking and asking and asking for me to get to Harry Bosch. I finally did with his first book in his series, and man, oh man, I was blown away by how good Michael Conley wrote this book, this thriller, the pace, the Bosch as a character, the premise of the story. Everything sucked me in. I've since read the second book. I'm eager to get to the third book as well, along with several other series. But man, Harry Bosch is where it's at. And so that is my list in its entirety. What was 2024 and now is 2025, to give you kind of a compare and contrast. I will also link the books below so you can kind of give an idea down there as well. If there's different books that you may have wanted to write down, you can always check the description. And that is my top list, my top 11 books with some honorable mentions that are now my favorites. So I hope you enjoy this, and I will talk to you all in the next one. Take care.